All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Are you so excited? Yes. Oh, great. How was the last night? Do you have some fun? Yeah, I heard that they have some dinner and have lots of events. And today, tomorrow, we have a huge session for coming along. And thank you for coming to be here. I'm so excited to have a session today. So we're going to talk about a little bit about how bias shapes your path to innovation. You might think you are rational, but let's be honest. Do you, when you go to bookstore, when you look at the book cover, do you judge based on that? When you look at the people who wearing T-shirts or shirts, dress, how are you gonna make a judgment? So the bias is everywhere. Over the past 2 decades, I was building a new products, new project, new business. When I talk to my employees or members, they always say that if you have a very high target goal, very ambitious, the revenue is gonna be double from last year. Most of the people say it's not be possible. I would say most of the people, like 80% of people say it's not gonna be possible. How is it gonna be achievable? So always, in my past experience, I have to think that how we can remove that bias and turn it into the positive bias. And this resonates myself, and when I talk with Aya, how we can tell all leaders what do you think about it. So today's panel discussion, we're gonna invite 3 incredible panelists who started the business from very small startups and growing to a large enterprise. And every leader has similar challenges. So hopefully everyone gonna enjoy this session and take it from here. So over to Aya, and sorry, I have this. And then you can take it from here.
Okay. Thanks, Masa. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Aya Endo, also from Saison Technology International, working as a marketing manager. So as Masa mentioned, bias influences decision at all level, not just in an organization, but also in our personal lives. We often think of bias as something that shapes how we judge others. But have you ever thought of how we see ourselves? I have. For a long time, I thought I wasn't the kind of person that would give a good presentation. I'd watch someone speak confidently, and I would see, that's not me. But then I started to question, was that really true, or just a story I keep telling myself? So I decided to challenge that belief, and here I am today. And if I still mess up today, well, just smile and pretend I'm doing great. Thank you. So we all have these kind of assumptions about ourselves, the thing we think we can't do just because we've never done it before. So to get us thinking, let's start with an icebreaker. Okay. So I know many of you have learned about bias in CAT class, so think of this as a quick refresher. So can you remember a time when you met someone for the first time? Did you ever feel an instant connection with them? Maybe because they're from the same school as you or grew up in the same hometown. Raise your hand. Have you ever experienced this before? Okay. Why do you think that happened? Would anyone like to share their thoughts? Is it too early in the morning? Yeah, we should give her.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I feel finding commonalities is important. And the moment you see somebody from your hometown, from your school, you have so many stories to connect on. It could be the famous coffee shop. It could be how the infrastructure in the city looked back then. I mean, we are all dated like about 2 decades outside of schools already. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it just helps you to strike a conversation and come to the talk of the business later. And at that moment, you build really good rapport with the person by referring in common experiences which we all had shared. So,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, it just helps us connect, build rapport.
Thank you. That's a really good point. Anyone else like to share? Oh,
I always thought that psychologically or biologically, we always try to find safety. And when you actually meet somebody who you know, who you can connect, that makes you feel safe. And that is a bias, big bias, but that's a bias that you are actually comforting yourself.
yeah.
And so that's what I always thought, that why we always seek some connection with somebody.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. So we naturally connect with people who are similar to us. We trust them more without even thinking about it. That's unconscious bias. And that doesn't just happen in our personal lives. It also happens at work too. For example, we tend to favor candidates who have their similar backgrounds ourselves. So let's go through another scenario. So imagine you have two job offers, one from a Fortune 500 company with stability, another from a fast-growing startup with higher pay, but also more risk. Now, just based on instinct, which one would you choose? Show of hands, who would go for the Fortune 500 company? Oh, interesting. Okay, who would take the startup route? Wow, there's a lot of risk takers and
It's all leaders.
yeah, wow, interesting. So this example shows how people make different decisions. Of course, personal experiences and career goals play a role, but it's possible that bias is also at play in how we make these choices. So why does bias influence us in the first place? So, I'm sorry. So we often think of bias as cultural, but it's actually deeply rooted in how our brain evolved. Early human had to make quick decisions to survive, so they developed mental shortcuts. These shortcuts still persist in how we process information today, but here's the catch. It doesn't always lead to the best decision. And now, these shortcuts have been stronger than ever. Algorithm feed us content that triggers strong emotions, outrage or fear, or it reinforces what we already believe. So with all this, is bias always a barrier? Or could there be another side to it? So take optimism bias. If a leader ignores risk and only rely on optimism, they may make poor decisions. And framing bias, if how you frame a problem influences decisions. So if a company see a market shift as a threat instead of an opportunity, they may fall behind while others move ahead. So is bias always negative? Or could these very bias actually drive innovation? So take optimism bias again. Yes, it does make us overconfident, but it also pushes us to take on challenges that seems impossible. Look at COVID-19 vaccine. When extra doubt that it could be developed in under a year, scientists kept going, convinced that they could make it happen. And in the end, they're confident, despite all the skepticism, led to a breakthrough that changed the global health care. So the question isn't whether bias is good or bad. The real challenge is how to use it to our advantage. So how do we do that? It all comes down to 3 key steps. First, recognize it. So awareness is the first step. And next, try to reframe it. Think about the classic question, is the glass half full or half empty? The way you see things change your mindset and choices. If you choose to see the glass half full, it can lead to a more positive and forward-thinking decisions. And lastly, put it into practice. A great way to do this is a pre-mortem. So a team imagines that a project has already failed and work backwards to find potential pitfalls. So these are the 3 steps that you can follow. So, but for real change to happen, leaders need to take the lead. So one of the most important things leaders can do is creating a psychological safety. So study shows that team with strong psychological safety generate 25% ideas more than those without. So knowing this is one thing, but actually putting it into practice isn't easy. That's why I've invited a great panels of experts, leaders who know how to build environment where innovation thrives. So I'm excited to introduce our guest panelist today, Denise Person, CMO at Snowflake. She played a key role in Snowflake's growth, leading it to over $3 billion in revenue and overseeing the largest software IPO in history. Eva Nahari, CPO at Victera, an AI expert with multiple AI patents and more than a decade of experience in enterprise infrastructure. And Narayan Kuneru, VP of Engineering at Roblox, pushing the boundaries of education through technology and innovation. With such outstanding guests, this is going to be an incredible discussion. So we're so excited to have you here. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Right, thank you, Aya. So I'm gonna be the moderator, and I totally forgot to introduce myself. So I'm Masa Mari, I'm the CEO of Season Technology International. I'm a cohort of the Pacesetter, and I'm gonna be the moderator today. So before starting the questions, I want you to have some self-introduction, what kind of background you did in the past, and one by one. So Denise, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Denise Persson, nice to be here with all of you. I'm from Sweden originally, if you wonder where this accent is from. And I started in tech in 1993 at Commodore. For some of you might remember the Commodore computer C64, etc. So that's where my journey in tech started. And since then, I've been with 4 different startups. And I've actually been a part of taking them from the early stage through IPOs. And most recently, right now, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Snowflake. I joined as one employee 120, and we had done essentially 0 in revenue back then. And now, almost 9 years later, we're well over 8,000 employees, and we crossed the $3.5 billion mark last year. Yes, as I said, we're known for we made the largest software IPO in history in 2021. So it's been a journey just of incredible growth.
And I'm Eva Nahari, a big fan of Denise here, and a fellow Sweden origin person. I came here about 20 years ago, though. And my journey starts in tech. I have a Master of Science in Engineering, Computer Science, in AI before it was cool. And since then, I've been a startup person that accidentally ended up in big companies. So I jokingly say I survived 2 acquisitions and 1 IPO. 9 years of my career was at Cloudera in the big data era and building products and go to market in a space that was very turbulent, I would say, exciting. And now I'm doing another journey in the AI and agentic and RAG space, equally turbulent and exciting. I also spent 4 years in venture capital here in Silicon Valley, so I sat on the other side of the table and saw leadership and organizational building from that perspective as well. Thanks for having me.
Morning, everybody. I grew up in India, and I've been in US for the last 25-ish years. Most of my career, I was working in startups that started around like less than 50 people through almost 3 IPOs by now. This is just my 4th job in like over 25 years. But it was really exciting to see a company grow from a very small place where we are just, I remember at Cloudera, the first thing you had to do is to assemble your own desk, right? Like here's a desk from IKEA, you got to assemble it, and then you got to commit some code before you leave the day, right? So that was our task, and that was exciting, right? My journey has mostly been around large-scale distributed systems, around data. This is the first job I had at Roblox where the technology is similar, but I was mostly working on enterprise space, and now this is about consumers. How many of you all have kids who are super passionate about Roblox? There you go. So most of you either love me because the kids are having a great time, or probably hate me because they're spending way too much time, right? Our job here is to keep them really safe and make sure that they're having like very safe and civil interactions, and we take that very seriously, and we use a lot of technology. And at the core of me, I'm an engineer, right? So I always try to think about scale and how do we solve problems at scale and make sure that no manual work is involved. I'm excited to be here.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so thank you. So before starting the question, I'm gonna give a couple questions from my side, but after that, I'm gonna open up the question to all leaders. So please, well prepared, what kind of question you want to do. And 3 of the panelists has a kind of IT backgrounds, and they have a kind of an AI alert, and everything gonna be related to leadership. So the first question is, how do you equip your teams to handle challenges and create opportunity for innovation? Can you share example of time your leadership made a positive impact? Do you want to start?
Should we start? And I was going to say, almost looking at this different bias, I would say Silicon Valley, this is the optimism valley, right? That's what it is. That's the bias we're all leaning into. Looking at us who've all been done part of building companies from scratch, it's all around optimism. It's all about selling the dream of something that doesn't exist. It's about getting people to believe in something that doesn't exist. It's all about painting a vision, how the world is going to get better, how your product is going to change the world and make it better, right? You're selling to the believers. So I think we're leaning in big times in terms of optimism. It all comes back to that, creating a vision, creating a mission or purpose. That's what we're leaning into every single day, and we still do, right? And even now, for Snowflake being a $3.5 billion company, we, in many ways, I think we're acting the same way. We're just leaning into that optimism in terms of we're just getting started, the world is gonna get better. And of course, technology is shifting every single day as well, right? So you feel like you're at day 0 every single day in terms of the innovation you need to do. And to get your entire organization, behind you, to get, of course, customers, coming to you, I would say it's all about leaning into that optimism bias. I would say a sprinkle of the Pygmalion bias as well, right? Because you talked about setting these incredible goals, and some people are leaning in only to that. I would say there are some leaders and some VC firms, it's all about the Pygmalion, right? And I think from our organization and myself, I would say I'm just focusing on optimism every day. And as a leader here, you have to bring 80 degrees and sunshine every single day. I can't come in looking worried, right? I have to come in like, yes, we're going to do this and get everyone with me. So I think that's kind of how I operate. And in terms of challenges, we're in different challenges here every single day. And the biggest, I think, challenge we have now is that things are moving faster than ever it has before. It is crazy how fast things move. It's crazy how hard people are working right now. I see really like our CEO, he works 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that, I wouldn't say that was the case 5 years ago. People had maybe their weekends off. So I think to pull people through that, all that hard work, it's going to be by painting that the world is going to get better on the other side.
I want to echo what you said, but build on it as well. I think Aya mentioned safety. I've been talking a lot amongst other leaders in the Valley around building resilient teams, because the shaking market for the last 3 years have been turbulent, to use that word a third time. I think you need to be resilient. And how do you, not just as individuals, but as teams, how do you create elasticity? How do you create, the grit it takes to get through the downtimes, to get to the upside again? I think safety is one, building trust and encouraging mistakes are okay. I often use the word let's experiment in my teams. That makes it less of a downfall if it fails. And that encourages this elasticity and trust that needs to be a foundation to allow failure, because from failure you can learn. So I'm not negative on failure. We need to experiment. We need to fail to course direct. We need to learn quickly and make new decisions. So this safety is very important as a corner pillar for a resilient team. It makes it safe to express different opinions and maybe be wrong. So safety is one. Purpose, you mentioned purpose. I always bring the team back to what's the North Star? Why are we here? The context is so important. Keep on hammering the why, because that is what makes me wake up in the morning and go to work. I want the team to feel the same. We have to have the same purpose. It's not just about goal. It's not about money. It's about the impact. It's about the change you want to do. You have to have that mission in your heart and ooze that every moment with your team as a leader. You have to believe in it for them to believe in it. And that purpose, that North Star, is what, when people start having doubts or there's complaining or there's fear, it's always fear behind those moments. So you have to steer them back to the why, the context, why we are all going up in the morning and working towards this. And I think that ties back into the optimist. It's like, it can be done. Look at what we're doing. We can go build this. It's going to change the world in this way that we all want. You have to put your passion into that moment and share that belief. And that is a bias, but it's working.
Totally optimist bias.
Yeah, so to add to what Denise and Eva were saying, it is really important to have a great vision, a great North Star, and make sure that you really believe in it, right? But then I want to tell you a story, and this is about innovation and bias, right? So when you're innovating, you absolutely need a safe space, because very likely you're going to fail. And that's okay, right? And people need to have that safe space. And at the same time, the how matters too, right? A lot of the times people, or I've seen myself included and some of our teams, you have a bias to action, right? And the bias to action sometimes leads you the wrong path. It's very easy to pick up the next easy thing and then go solve it, but then we may not be actually doing the right thing in the long run. So we always talk about, whenever you're trying to tackle a very hard problem or very unknown problem, let's go figure out what is the hardest problem here, and let's try to de-risk it. Let's try to solve the hardest problem first. And then, of course, the easy things can be done later, right? Like, you need to have a clear path to your end state, and you need to create that space and really press on the teams to go and say, ask really hard questions about what is really, really hard about this, right? And if it's too easy, maybe you're not doing something right there. So it's really hard, at least for me, to fight your bias for action and really build upon identifying what is the hardest problem and then go solve it. I'll give you an example that we did at Roblox. We were launching this feature around having a spatial voice, right? So as you're playing games, you should be able to communicate with everybody as you're in a physical space. And if you're far away, the voice will be fainted, but if you're close by, you can hear them well. So that's called spatial voice. The hardest problem there was, how do we keep this interaction safe and civil? And we had no ideas to solve it at our scale in a very cost-effective way. It's really, really, really hard, right? What we did was we actually assembled a team of 10 engineers, right, like from different aspects. We locked them up in a room. I mean, that was a joke, right? We did not really lock them up, but we set up a lab-like environment, right? You will come to that room, and that looks like a Stanford computer science lab. And then we said, let's go solve it. Like, you got 6 months, go figure it out, right? And we did not allow anyone else to enter in that room. I was the only person who was allowed, who was a non-engineer, to enter that room. And they had all sorts of empowering them, because they are taken off call, they don't have to do interviews, etc. Like, you have to empower them, create a safe space, and at the end of the day, expectation is that it's okay if you cannot find it. We actually called it a very funny name, Miracle something, right? Which I can't share because it's being recorded. You have to find a miracle. That's the only way you can solve it. And we were able to. And now, we're able to launch that thing, right? So really avoiding the bias to action and then trying to avoid the bias to solve the easiest problem first is very hard.
Great, thank you. I have a follow-up questions to Eva. I think you talk about resiliency and then safety. And of course, the leader gonna talk about gonna be safety, you can fail, but most of the people doesn't believe it, right? How are you gonna make that gonna be happen?
It takes time, but you have to show that you're also willing to be wrong and fail as a leader. It leans into something else that I want to talk about, which is you need to lead by doing. So if I do something as an experiment and fail, I make it very visible to my team. It's leading by doing, like, okay, I messed up here. I'm not perfect. What can we learn from this? And then when someone does a mistake, I don't come down like a hammer. I try to understand what happened, see what can we learn from this, and I use the we. It's never a person, it's a team. And I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I do this every time, but this is what I strive to do. We fail together, we win together kind of philosophy. And then rolling up your sleeves. It's not just when I fail. I show that I'm one with the team by, and I'm not talking just about myself. I've seen this leadership succeed in companies I worked with. When the leader, when things are starting to go bad, roll up the sleeve and come in as one of the team and not standing on the sidelines, pushing them further away from the team to distance themselves from failure. That's kind of what makes that trust happen, for them to come forward and share when they fail. So it can be in the small context of, oh no, we didn't put a video together as we promised, and then we all pitch in over the weekend, and I do a script, someone else does the recording, and it's coming together as a team when it counts, but it could be as big as one of the portfolios I worked with who had 2 months left runway or something like that and had to cut cost. They all took a salary cut, including the CEO. There was no bonuses. There was just everyone is in the same water, and he took the biggest one. So I think I think being part of the team, being one with the team when things are going bad and showing by example, you either win as a team or you fail as a team. And if you fail as a team, there's a learning opportunity to raise yourself out of that and continue with growth. There is no failure, there's just learning. But you do that together, if that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Oh, you want to follow?
No, I think in the early days for us, right? I mean, so much when you do your meetings is about talking about the things that went well. Oh, you know, that program was such a success, and maybe that was the optimism, right? You want to keep the optimism up too, so you want to feed the optimism clearly. But then we start talking about, okay, every time in every meeting, we need to bring up a few things that did not work as well, right? Okay, taking the mood down a little bit, for sure, in the meeting. But we did that, and it took a while to really get people to speak up, but it was more about then, okay, celebrating what did not work, and repeat over again, right? Great learning moment. Finally, we learned, something too. So that's something we did in the earlier days.
So I have a personal question. So to keep optimism every day when you wake up, do you have any tips with that?
It is about, again, that purpose that Eva was talking about, right?
Yes.
If you have the sense of purpose and you believe in the mission, then it's exciting. Then that fuels the optimism too. But I think a lot when we talk around all these different bias that Aya talked about, I also see personalities. You need the different people, right? Everyone can't be like me. I can see it when, there's a program called Insights Discovery, right? When you have a color, you're a yellow, you're a red, you're a blue, or a green, right? You can almost see the bias almost applying to that too, where I'm the one coming in with extreme optimism, the 80 degrees and sunshine every single day, and really more the why. I talk about the why and the what. There are people also need to talk about the when and the who. How is this going to happen? So I think you need the bias perspective across the entire team.
I would say you have to find your own way to recharge because the never-ending optimism is tiring at times, but you have to because you're in the leadership position. You have to carry the team. When they have doubts, you have to be the optimist. When they're too optimistic, I need to be the critic, though. So it goes both ways. But I would say I have a wonderful family supporting me, and one of my husband's core handles in life I've adopted. It's a bonus to wake up in the morning. Nothing is for granted. If you wake up in the morning, if you're healthy, the rest is a bonus, So it's a beautiful gift to wake up in the morning, and if you feel that gratitude to just be here and be part of a life still, I think that carries a lot of the weight of whatever else happens is just a bonus. Waking up is the mission, staying healthy. So do whatever it takes to stay healthy, up here, in your body, and marry the right guy, I say.
Naren, do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think you have to be excited about what you're doing, right? Especially at work, we spend half the life at work, and you really got to be excited and passionate about what you're doing. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, like sweating, because I don't know how to solve this problem, right? And then that's kind of what excites me to get to work every day, to work with all sorts of smart people to solve these really hard problems. But you have to find a purpose and genuinely feel passionate about your work. And if not, maybe you're in the wrong job, right? I think there's like plenty of opportunities out in the world. You should go find something that excites you. To me, so that's a core purpose. Like you have to find some meaning and some purpose of that job, and that'll push you to do well by yourself.
Great. All right, so as technology and virtual spaces evolve, especially for AI from last year, Gen AI changed all this environment. And as of leadership, looking for the next couple of years, Do you think that is gonna be change your style you have to adapt with environment, or do you think that the fundamentally doesn't gonna change? Do you have any those kind of opinion with that?
I have plenty of opinion on this. How much time do you have? So first, I work at a company that builds a RAG platform, a retrieval augmented generation, so you can ground whatever the LLM comes up with in your data, in your truth. And why I left VC to join this startup is because I think they build it the right way and enable as far as possible for enterprises to do Gen AI responsibly and safely. That's why. And I fully wake up in the morning with that purpose. I know too much about AI and how it can go wrong and how you can make innocent mistakes because you don't understand that AI doesn't have common sense. AI doesn't have empathy. AI is based on whatever data you fed it. And I don't want the internet to be the behavior of AI. I want selected, trusted data to steer how our AI functions will lead the way for more convenience, for more happiness, for more revenue, for more efficiency, all that good that comes with AI, but in the right way. So in this moment, very transformative moment, I want to stress that make sure you make AI better than humans. Like you can have a bias in what data goes in to train these models or tune them. Be very careful in selecting who you partner with. Don't just look at the money, look at humanity as a long-term goal. And when you build these AI systems, think about the human aspect, and that's point number 2, is it will impact humans. Include them in this change. We're looking at efficiency opportunities even in our small company, and it will impact how we choose to invest and scale forward in hiring people. But those people are still important because this AI can't do everything. It's like hiring a bunch of interns. You need someone to manage the interns and make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. I think it's going to be a transition phase where you really need to embrace the human AI aspect of things, be it building more empathy into AI, building more capabilities for humans to manage AI, or eventually coming out with new kinds of roles to make AI safe throughout the organization. We're in a transition. We're definitely going to depend on AI, so it's so important to get it right. And I think bias can work in a good way here. Take the example of driving. Statistics show that males around 25 years old are terrible drivers, while women in their 40s are actually very, very safe drivers. So why are we learning driving? Why are we doing these self-driving cars on data from young male drivers that drive around here? It should be women in their 40s kind of data that should train the model, right? So bias is good. I'm just using that as an example. Bias is good in the way if you have the intent to do what's right for humanity, or what's better than human. And I want to encourage us all to embrace that path forward.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I really think 2023, the year of ChatGPT, is like 2007 when iPhone came out, right? I think we are in that huge transformative phase of every aspect of our life over the next 10 years is going to be changed, and I think we should embrace it. Yes, there is a lot of risk, a lot of fear around AI, but I think it is here to stay. And I joke with my kids that our generation probably invented a few things like iPhone and Netflix and all like Google and everything, and we probably spoiled these guys, right? Like everybody's just like this all these days. But I think it also brought in a lot of positive change in the world, and I really believe AI is here. AI is going to be everywhere, and it is going to bring a lot of positive change. And of course, we have to be very, very careful on how we use it, for sure, right? So in that way, a few examples on how AI is changing. I mean, it has been a great equalizer too in a lot of cases, right? So I'll tell you a personal story. I'm not very good at writing, right? I always struggle to write good documents, good emails, etc. So, typically I just write something long. I have a partner, like my product partner, designers, etc. They make it like beautiful story out of it. And recently I had to write a very kind of a tough email to a vendor, but to make sure that, okay, we are kind of stern on a contract. But also we don't want them to walk away from us, right? So we had to find that balance. And then I wrote something, and then I gave it to Gemini and said, hey, condense this, right? And it was really bad. It was just a bunch of bullet points that was like, had nothing. And I said, add some soul to it. It came out with a beautiful writing, right? And then I made some edits and I sent it over, and the person who helps me always to write better, he's like, where did this come from? This is your best writing ever. Right? Okay, I found your replacement, Matt, right? I mean, that's kind of what I was telling him. But it is a great equalizer, right? I mean, if you want to play a lot around, like even analyzing some stuff, you generate some code, like Cloud is great at generating code, Gemini is great at summarizing these documents and stuff. And I think there's a lot of applications for AI that you can find to improve our productivity and our efficiency and safety throughout. Right?
Dennis?
No, I think right now, we're dealing with tons of uncertainty, right? Just looking at the field of marketers, more than 50% are really, really worried about the future. They don't know if their job is going to exist anymore. We're faced with a huge skill set, gap as well. And I think from a leadership standpoint, the only thing we can remind everyone about is that there are no lifelong jobs anymore. The only thing you can be is a lifelong learner. So that kind of learning mentality, mindset is so important, just to embrace and remind everyone about every day. And then really creating those opportunities then for learning. How are we investing in our workforce from a skill set, standpoint? So that's what we are doing right now. I think we're investing more in learning development than we've ever had before. And we also, of course, work with many of the world's largest companies in terms of helping them implementing their data and AI strategies. And every company knows the technology is here. We can do everything we need to do. And most of them also have a vision. They kind of know this is kind of where we need to go. No one has confidence in their own organization's ability to execute on this AI opportunity we have in front of us. So I think from a leadership standpoint, the big thing is really around skill set development. How do we really foster that mentality of continuous learning across our organizations every day?
Wow, it's going to be all the message to the leaders, right? So everyone is to keep learning. All right, so I want to open up the questions. Anything that relate to leadership, bias, whatever it is. Can you raise your hands? All right, they have a mics. Please call your name up first, and then I have a question.
Thanks, man. Yeah, my name is Nick Kunj. I am from Singapore, and I work in ad technology business. So my biased question is, when you work out on the marketing AOP, are you biased with the previous success, or you're looking at the data and strictly making the decisions? And that question is for you, Denise.
Both, I think. I think both. Again, the data is also from the past as well. So, and really both. I think marketing specifically is kind of the art, the science of both science and art in bringing that together. So, we're very different, data-driven from campaigns, optimization, performance, all those things. But you definitely need to have your own critical thinking and creativity as well, looking at the future.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
I have a follow-up about you must be launching new markets, and there are times when you're looking for product market fit. And you got a balance between brand awareness of Snowflake versus getting real leads to push business forward. So in such situations, the data can point that we just continue with performance advertising and not participate enough on brand awareness because we are just flushing dollars and there is no return on ad spend. So in such situation, the bias would say that let's do what we have been doing and what has been working for us. But the real situation might just say we need to spend differently and not follow the same path. So how would you approach that a little differently? And then you may use bias or just completely a divergent thought.
No, great question. And again, new markets needs to be treated sort of, differently, right? I mean, I don't know if you've read the whole Jeff Moore's in terms of crossing the chasm in the early days, right? Incubation, you're entering the tornado, and then you're kind of more crossing the chasm, and it's more focused on productivity, essentially, right? And if we look at it like us in North America, it's very much productivity, right? How do we optimize things? Where we're entering new markets, Saudi, we just opened in 4 weeks ago, right? We're in the early incubation phase, and you have to do more experiment in that market in the beginning. So that's the thing. You need to be multimodal in terms of your marketing strategy, right? I can't bring whatever works in the US to Saudi or to Indonesia, right? We're in the early days. We got to go in with it's a new day mindset and experiment and test what's going to work in that market before we more look at what needs to be scaled there.
I'm going to add to that. You can also look at what has worked for other companies. Look who is an unsuspected success in a country. What did they do differently than everybody else, right? So you can find comparison outside your own data and see, it's very interesting to look. I worked very closely with Japan, entering startups in Japan market. And it's a very different go-to-market in Japan and very different growth curves. And you really have to study what worked and what didn't to kind of copy other success patterns. Not bulletproof because it's, markets change. You can also have a local advisor. So advisors are great for when you expand into new markets. So have a local country manager like advisor in the region you're expanding.
Thank you both.
Great, thank you. One more question. I can go. Oh, they raise their hands.
Hello, good morning. So this general question, I think a lot of words came out from you about humanity and AI. So through this process, what I see is the real humanity is lost. That's my personal feeling. Like in terms of, are we more faking in our life? What we saw earlier generation is more real, and are we going to the direction without even making any real assumptions on like how we are going to compromise on those front? So that's my total take on this AI and humanity. So what do you think generally? The thing is the family life balance is lost. I see that a lot of faking and adding more stress. That's what the AI is taking into the path. That's my personal feeling. I think we are driven by more of market revenue and more monetizing. That's what I see in all over the world. The total humanity is lost. That's my total. I see that it's going to have a worst direction in the future. That's my total feeling on this AI stuff. What is your thought about it?
So I definitely see two buckets. One bucket is let's make money out of this and run as fast as we can and just look at the numbers. And the other bucket is like, oh, let's be cautious, let's do it the right way, let's put regulations in place. Neither bucket is good. You need a mix of both. Europe has focused a lot on let's put regulations, let's be cautious, and they're falling behind. And other parts of the world are like no rules at all, and that may not be good for the humanity or the world. I think the cat is out of the bag. The AI moved from the lab and expert environment to everybody knows AI now, or at least what it can do. But do everybody know enough about AI to know the implications? No. So to Denise's point, we need to increase that understanding, the good, the bad, and the ugly with AI in all our employees and organizations. The skill set is lagging from what happened over the last few years. So if you're going to do it right, you need to really up not just the convenience of something mimicking a human language interaction, but you have to understand what it can't do. Where are the limitations? And educate your entire organization on that so that people who don't know AI don't make an innocent mistake that have detrimental impact, right, in the negative sense. You should be worried, but it shouldn't stop you. You should do the right thing. You should move forward with knowledge, with sharing, with experimentation, with failing and learning, and transparency. Like, you shouldn't hold back because then you're going to be gone tomorrow. But you should do it with common sense, which is lacking in AI, right? Be the human in the AI world. Be the responsible leader who pushes AI forward, who pushes the skill levels, push you out of comfort zone because fear will only hold you back. But educate yourself, move forward in the right way with the right partners, and don't believe all the marketing noise from big hyperscalers out there that that's the only way.
I think there is different ways to look at this, right? So AI as a technology has enabled us to solve some of the really hard problems, right? Without which we were not able to before, right? So the whole machine learning and the way we train the models, the way we deploy them, at least for Roblox, we used AI a lot to keep people safe on the planet, right? So I think that's a great way of a positive use of AI. And a lot of people talk about AGI and stuff, and the main reason why it's not out there is because everybody's really worried about how to keep it safe, how to keep out all the biases out, how do we make sure that it doesn't generate all sorts of bad images, bad videos and stuff like that. And that's really what's holding back for all these big companies too. I believe they're all doing the responsible thing by holding back and not really providing all the tech out there because it's really hard to control the AI, right? And that's what I believe most companies are really working hard in a responsible way. And of course, like I said, we changed a generation that is just grew up like this, right? And is that a good or a bad thing? I think there's a lot of positives that came out of having an iPhone, all the information in your pocket, to spoiling a generation in some ways too, right? So I'm sure there is going to be some fallouts of this. But again, as a leader, like Eva said, we have to embrace it and make sure that we take the responsibility to avoid such situations as much as possible.
All right, thank you. So we're almost running out of time, and for the leaders, it'd be great if you could share the messages, how you're gonna emphasize for the leadership and the bias.
Should I start?
Yep.
No, I think coming back to what I said earlier, I think you need to have all of these in your organization, right? I mean, everyone cannot be the one just driving optimism. There need to be some of those, of course, driving ambitious numbers and things. We also need to have those who kind of bring things back to ground as well and figure out how are we going to do this. I think you need again to have an inclusion of all this in the organization.
Great, thank you.
I would just echo, as leaders, you are responsible for embracing AI the right way, but represent humanity, please. And then I would also, please remember when you were right out of school and it was very hard to get a job, with all these AI agents coming, it will be 10x harder because you can now have senior people managing AI agents. How are you going to build new skill sets? How are you going to get young skills, young employees into your organization? Because you could put an agent on it in many cases. So think very creatively how to continue help grow new skill sets. Otherwise, we will be in a mess. So please do AI responsibly for humanity. That's my message.
Thank you.
I think as leaders, always lead with empathy. And one last thing I'll say, which is completely out of the blue, is probably find yourself mentors, and they play a really hard role. And these mentors should not be afraid to tell you the hard message that you don't want to hear, right? I think that's kind of makes you a lifelong learner, and just take that feedback well. I mean, feedback is a gift. Find yourself these mentors that can, talk very, very openly with you, and not afraid to yell at you.
All right, thank you so much. So give a round of applause, and thank you for all the sessions.